There was a time in my career when I believed that in order to lead, I had to know everything, that I had to be the smartest person in the room. But what I've learned and what today's guest lives and breathes is that real leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions. It's about lifting your head from the details and learning to see the bigger picture. And it's about trusting your team, even when you don't have all the answers yourself. And in this episode of From a Woman to a Leader, I sit down with Harini Rajagopal, and she's a brilliant data engineering manager who's done everything in the data world. Analyst, scientist, software engineer, analytics manager, and now leads with strategy, empathy, and impact. And today we talk about how she restarted her career in the US and climbed the ladder with confidence, what to do if you don't know which data career path is right for you, and how to grow as a leader without being the loudest voice in the room. And the two underrated skills every data professional should master. Spoiler alert, one is Excel. And if you are mid-career, feeling unsure where to go next, or wondering if management is right for you, Harini's honest, inspiring story will give you the clarity and confidence you need to take your next step. Hi everyone, for those who don't know me, my name is Limor Bergman Gross. I've been in tech for over 20 years. I started my career as a software engineer, grew into leadership, and became a director of engineering. About 5.5 years ago, I left corporate and became a coach to support other women's career growth. And this podcast, I bring you real conversations with real women, leaders in tech, so you can stop playing by outdated rules and start leading on your own terms. And I want to invite you to follow and subscribe this podcast and share it with any woman you think is going to be valuable for. And I want to invite you to tune into the episode. You'll walk away inspired, empowered, and maybe even ready to brush up your Excel skills. So are you ready? Let's dive right in. Hi, Harini. How are you?
Hi, Limor. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. It's such a pleasure having you here. Your son was sick. My son had a tooth issue. So I'm happy that we were able to connect.
Thank you so much for having me. I was really looking forward to talking to you, having listened to some of your episodes. So this is awesome. So I'm really excited to be here. And yes, and we finally worked out a time that works. Family comes first, always. So it's
absolutely, it always comes first.
We have to figure out another day that works for us anyway. So I'm
really for sure.
Yeah. How are you?
Sorry?
How are you?
I'm pretty good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I wanted to kind of maybe start us off by talking about your move to the US, because you grew in India and you moved to the US. So maybe share a little bit about that move and kind of what challenges did you face when you moved to the US?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to be brutally honest. And I'm going to say it wasn't bad at all. It was
good,
very smooth. So here's a couple of things. I grew up speaking English all my life. Started I watched Cartoon Networks every episode, but you only have to remember that things in India came a decade later. So I saw Scooby-Doo in the 90s when it was like a 70s cartoon. So I grew up watching a ton of cartoons. So the culture, the language, I had no problems whatsoever. I could communicate, I could read, I could write. So when we decided to get our master's, it was just, going through the process and then moving over. It was almost like a dream come true, right? Like you were getting to live in the sitcom that you grew up watching, right?
Yeah.
Very many ways. Oh, you get to go to these places that you've seen people go in these sitcoms. So that was a fun part. The only culture shift that I saw was that people did not look like me. right? They look different. They spoke
Yeah.
different. It's a lot different from hearing people talk on TV to having a conversation with them in person. So I would say my biggest takeaway, or like my personal biggest challenge, was that it took me maybe a couple of months to get used to the culture in the US. Um, how polite people are. They say hi when you see them. They wave. They hold doors. Oh my god,
Mm-hmm.
it's huge for me because it wasn't something that I was used to. When you walk in the store, people like hold the door until the next person comes in. Things like that, like small chivalry. I loved it, and it was uh, that was the only change. Does that help? So I wouldn't say I
Yeah.
had language problem. I had friends when I moved over because I moved to a university that had a lot more Indians than like many others that people go to. I went to UT Dallas. So before even I landed, there was like a group of people who are all going together from where I'm from. They had a bus organized to take us from the airport all the way to where we were staying. So honestly, I had very small uh, change or
Perfect. That's
one.
great. I mean, I must share, Harini, that I very much relate to what you mentioned about the culture. That when I moved to the US,
Yeah.
I really like it when people are very friendly and polite, and they open the door for you, and they ask you how are you, and they smile to you when you enter a store. And my Israeli friends, they say, "Oh, this is kind of so hypocrite and and not natural and all this." Like, to
Yeah.
me, it
So,
sounds like that's how it should be. Like, right? I mean, you want to be greeted nicely when you walk into a store, and as you said, like someone holding the door for you. And this is something that stuck with me.
yeah, right.
Yeah, definitely. I like that.
One
And
of many things that stuck with me the first time I went back, but the culture was the biggest.
yeah, and I think that once you get used to a certain, like for me, when I moved to Israel, I think Israel and India in a lot of ways are similar. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
crowded. It's like much less personal space and all that. And when I moved back to Israel, a lot of things started kind of to bother me that
Yeah.
before that didn't bother me at all. So I guess, yeah, you kind of, I think that the more experiences you have, you expand and you just, I don't know how to say,
Just met people from other parts of India for the first time when I moved to the US. Like I
uh-huh,
was like this small bubble where yes, people all look like me, but they also like spoke like me. They
yeah,
had similar backgrounds like me because I never moved from my hometown, right? It was such a small experience. And just moving across the world, you see people from India, but just from another state, which you have never been to. You've only heard about it in like history lessons or geography lessons. But these people are from there. They bring their own like culture, they bring their own food, they bring their own language, which
yeah.
was um, which was a lot, and I it was a beautiful experience that I would not have had I just stayed where I was.
Absolutely. I think that moving different places, it's a great experience. I'm very fortunate that I was able to move to the US. We lived in two different areas in the US, so I
Yeah,
think every experience that you have, you kind of get a broader perspective, and that's what I also want for my kids. I want them to
100%.
experience, different things.
Yeah, very grateful, very thankful that I was able to do it in the first place, and that my parents
Yeah.
supported, and I had the support system, and that I grew up with English as a language. I'm very thankful and grateful for everything that was stacked for me to be successful when I moved over.
Yeah, and career-wise, when you moved over to the US, I mean, you said you went to a master degree, and now I know that you are leading a data engineering team. So back then, were you a manager or not yet?
No, not yet at all. So I had a computer science engineering background in India, and I worked for 4 years as a data analyst, just out of college.
Mm-hmm.
When I moved here, I pursued IT management with a specialization in analytics. So right after that, I started as an IC, as an individual contributor. I was making dashboards as the first, like, off the roster, just an analyst doing at the very end of the very end of the rainbow, where like I was building dashboards once the data was available, catering to people who just asked me for what they exactly wanted. But yeah, I started right there.
And how did you know that management is what you wanted?
Um, just many years of absorbing what I
Uh-huh.
wanted and like dipping my toes and seeing what made sense for me and personality. For a large extent, I'm type A and I'm a mover and a shaker. So if I don't know something, I'd be the first one to ask for it. So that truly helped to get me to a place where, hey, is this something that I want? Do I want to wait until people tell me what they want? And then I go do it. And then I go back to them only for them to say, that's not what I wanted. You need to change some of this. Had I asked the right questions at the first, maybe the back and forth could have stopped. Okay, that was the first step. And then the comes, is this even what you want? Does this even answer your question? That comes next. And then comes the management aspect of it, to look at the forest for the trees. So the ask was just to make a dashboard. But come to think of it, you don't need that at all. All you wanted was just this one KPI that you wanted to know every day in the morning, and you did not care to see it in a dashboard. You just wanted to know that number. So if I just send it to you in an email, that's all you wanted to see. So you wanted the information to come to you. So I think it was a slow transition from starting from where I was given to start to progress to a place to understand that managing expectations or managing the wants was where I excelled at and where I thrived and where I wanted to be. So it was a slow progression for very many years for me to get here. I did not start to, I did not wake up one day and decide I want to be a manager. Definitely not.
Yeah. Also, for me, it took some time to realize that. I think one of the things for me, I
Uh-huh.
realized that I didn't want to stay in IC is that I looked at people that were ICs, like much more senior than me. And I said, do I want to become someone like that? Right? I
Ooh.
mean, and I said, no, probably not. Eh, right? Because a lot of times we have to kind of envision ourselves like, how, or what are we going to do? And then when I ask myself, hey, do I see myself like this person, or do I see myself like I had a former manager that I really, that really inspired me and I looked up for, and I thought I want to become him, like I want to be someone like that. So that kind of helped me realize what I wanted.
You think it's a breadth versus the depth conversation? Like you see an
Yeah,
IC and you're like, this person knows the depth of what they're doing, like a 10x engineer. They
yeah.
know the nuts and bolts, and that's what gives them happiness and that's what gives them contentment. But I'm not that person. I would want to solve the problem, but then look at it at a broader perspective. Do you think that's true? Was that one of your motivations to be a manager too? Looking
So
at the breadth?
for me, that was several things. First of all, as you mentioned, breadth versus depth. I didn't see myself like diving very, very deep.
Yeah.
Um, I also really enjoyed working with people and helping them
Mhm.
and supporting them.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to be able to be influential on other people and support their growth. Yeah, I guess that was that for me mainly.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Because you end up doing that as a manager. You have a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
responsibility that does
yeah.
not involve just you anymore.
Correct. And I wanted to ask you, Reno, one of the questions that a lot of people ask me, I mean, at least those who are considering whether to be a manager or not.
Mhm.
How can you be a manager and still, like, they're afraid of, how am I going to lose my touch? Am I going to lose like the technical skills? How much do I need to stay, on the details? So, what's your take on that?
Okay. Brutal honesty is what we signed up
Yeah,
for today.
we want honesty.
You want. So I think the fear comes from the fact that your engineers will do something that you will be on the hook for, and you will not know how to fix it. And you will need them to fix it for you, but then you can't find them, or like you can't answer questions when there's a problem. To me, I think that's where some of the fear comes in. Should I still be more technical? Will I lose my depth if I'm a manager? to me, that's some of the things that I ask myself every day. And I think the answer to that is two steps in there. One, you need to hire good people that you trust, or you need to
Mm-hmm.
work yourself. If you're given, a lot of times you get hired as a manager, right? You're given a set of people that you
Yeah.
work that you did not personally hire. So if that's the case, you need to work towards this circle of trust, that you understand who they are, what they do, and what's their plus and minus. Like, where do they shine, where do they not shine? That's one. That's understanding the people that work, the engineers that work for you is key. And B is, you don't need to do every merge request, or you don't need to approve every merge request to know the technology really well. You have to stay away from the really low key decisions to have your head as a manager. But that doesn't mean that you don't understand what your engineers do. So, what I do, and we do this every week, is that we have a technical back and forth. Once a week, my engineers and I meet, and they give me like a rundown, not low level. I do not see code, but they give me a rundown of exactly the decisions that they made through the week for some of these edge cases that they've developed. You as a manager know what your team is doing. What are they building? How are they
Mm-hmm.
building? You have the idea already. What you don't know is some of these things that they ran into and they were like, aha, I did not know that there was a problem there and I fixed it. So once a week, I just like passively listen and have them like pretty much geek over some of the things that they solved, some of the things that they found interesting that they don't know the answer, but they were able to find out, or they raised to me, and then I was able to give them some of the pointers, which most of it, like, put a ticket in and ask the team that is doing this, or like ask the technology team that can solve for you. Um, so I think trust in your people and have a solid ground, like have your grounding in
Mm-hmm.
knowing that your team is doing their best and you know what it is enough to be able to solve problems for them. That's more than enough. You don't need to be able to code as good as them. You don't need to be able to solve every real core problem that they're doing. You will lose perspective. You will turn yourself back into IT. You will start micromanaging everything that they submit. Forest for the trees. You've lost as a manager right then. That's my 2 cents, and that's worked for me in the last um, several years. And I
Mm-hmm.
that's, if you're, whoever's listening to this can take away, just have faith and have and sow the right seeds. Like, make your team trust you. Like the first point, right? It goes back and forth there. The trust in the team, and knowing the engineering strong enough that you should be fine.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think that it takes some the transition. A lot of times it is difficult. Just to you're not the smartest person in the room or the one who knows the most technical details, and you need to let go of that. And as you said, hire smart people. Sometimes they know much more than you, or many times they know much more than you on different areas, and you need to.
Want them to. So one of my standard dialogues is, I'm not the smartest person in this room. You guys are smarter than me any which way. You tell me what we should be doing. Do not wait for me to prescribe things. So I say that over and over again, and over time, I think they've understood that. They're like, okay, she's not going to challenge me in a way that is uncomfortable. When she does challenge me, it is just so we have a common ground to improve. And it's a
Yeah,
collaboration, and it's not my manager saying or prescribing this is what I should be doing. Right? Say that over and
exactly.
over again. I'm not the smartest person in this room. You tell me what we should be doing and we can collaborate.
Yeah, and I think a good manager knows how to ask the right questions
I agree.
and to make tough decisions.
Very hard. Very true. It's not hard. That's not easy on us, as people think. That's not easy on us at all. But yes, make those tough decisions.
Yeah. So I think when we talked last time, you said maybe we can talk about, like, in data, what kind of different career path exist. So can you share, like, because for our listeners that maybe are interested in data engineering, data analytics, or whatever, I mean, what kind of options they are, and from your perspective, how do you know what is, or what do you need to know or do in order to get to each one of them?
Sure. So you want to decide if you want to take an IC path, like an individual contributor path, or a manager path in the first place. I think I will talk more about the individual contributor path So I'm climbing my own manager path ladder. So I can't speak for something that I don't have a ton of experience. Maybe we should have this conversation again when I'm like a VP or something.
Okay, let's do that.
But as an IC, I think I look at it in three buckets. And this is what I would say. One bucket is the analysts bucket. Do you want to do analysis on data to slice and dice and dive deeper to understand, or to like have your aha moments? Oh, so this was something that I never thought was happening with my data. That's one piece of analytics and analysts. Then comes the center portion of analytical engineering. So to even let the people get there, you need to do a lot of munging, or which we use in data a lot. Like, how do you aggregate these data? What tests you put in place so it's usable? So the center portion is all about analytically engineering this so it's consumable. Then comes the data engineering portion, which is like at the very beginning. How do I even get these data to these people? Like, where are it? Where is it? What is the integration looking like? What is the frequency of this data looking like? Can I make sure that it's reliable to arrive at X amount of time every day? What happens if something breaks until it can get to these two people who depend primarily on the data being available? So it's data engineering, analytics engineering, analysts, and the fourth bucket would be your data scientists. So they're not analysts, they're not diving deeper into the data to find out problems or like things that they've not found out. They're looking at data and extrapolating it to see if they can find something based on the pattern that already exists. So to me, those are like the four IC paths that anybody working in data can like pick and choose based on their background. And again, you can always develop your skills in one of these at any point in time. You can always pivot based on what you like and go deeper. So
For sure.
data,
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
analysts, and data scientists.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think that I just wanted to show our listeners there are multiple options, and I guess you can experiment
Yes.
and try. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't work, try something else. Like,
100%. Like, try dip your toes and everything and see what makes sense for you. Do a private project. You can be all four at the same time, right?
yeah,
Your GitHub projects would make you all four at the same time. If you get a job, start anywhere is what my only advice. It doesn't matter if you're starting as a data scientist. It doesn't matter if you're starting as a analyst. Start somewhere and then figure out where you want to be. Because I did that and it worked fine for me.
yeah. And I think that a lot of people are afraid that if they start someplace, they're going to be stuck there.
That's not true at all. Not with data at all. Because at every point in time, you're heavily collaborating with every other person. It's almost like a graph, a multi-nodal graph. So all of these four touch everything at the same time. So you're looking at it in 3D. So there's no way that you're not going to be exposed to some of the work that the other team does. Not to the depth of they would do on a daily basis, but that in no shape, means, or form won't expose you to the work that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you realize at some point that you want to become a manager from your experience, I mean,
Yeah.
what is important to do or to have?
I think that's a do you want to do this in the first place question, because
Yeah.
it's not as fun as being an IC. I will tell you that first. It's not. I think that's one of my mentors, something that he said, and I think I would take that very personally. He said, you do know it's not going to be as fun as being an IC. And I'm like, why would you say that? And he's like, nope, I'm giving you a fair warning. You will come back to me a couple of years from now and you will say that it wasn't as fun. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's not the exact same thing. There are two different buckets of stuff. So ask yourself, do you want to make those hard decisions? Do you want that weighing on you? That's not something that they will just give it out of hand, right? This is something that you want to do. That's first. Is this something that you enjoy? And that goes hand in hand with want. And I think that's the two things that should stop you from transitioning. Can you look at it from a strategy perspective? Can you take yourself out of the equation and look at some of these problems as how an outsider would solve. That's very crucial to be a manager because you can be in the weeds. You can be in the trenches solving every technical problem and looking at it as a manager. So you can be both. So maybe do pros and cons. And something that a lot of people don't know, the manager, at least until you get to maybe a director or above, does not get paid as much as their highest IC. If you're right, you know this.
Yes, this is important thing.
Yeah. People think that
Uh,
it's more money and that's why they want to go to manager. That's not true at all. Your highest IC will make more than you, and they should.
to be honest, Harini, also when you go into director and VP,
Huh?
the RICs that make more money.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think, to be honest, money is never a good enough motivation to anything. Either it's switching a job or moving to one role or another. Should always stick to where your passion is at and where you feel like you can bring value rather than, oh, that's going to pay me more. I mean, it's not that money is not important, but that shouldn't be the only kind of motivation.
That's hard for people. Like, I mean, at our, like, at least the majority that we've gotten over our career, we can say that. But had you asked me this 11, 12 years ago, I would have been like, that's not true at all. I want more money. That's all I care about. I don't care what I'm doing at this point, right? You could see, like, it takes years of maturity working in corporate to be able to make that distinction and say that it's secondary to what you want to do. Then comes the money perspective. So knowing that you can make more just being an IC is a very crucial thing that a lot of people do not know. And I found that late in my career. For very many years, I was told, "Oh, you become a manager, you make a ton of more money than what you did as an IC." That's not true at all. So I just want, like, to our listeners, that's something, if you haven't heard, this is very crucial, and they should make more money than ICs. The ICs should make more money. It's
Yeah,
important, but to your point, it's not as much, and it takes time to get there.
yeah, but I can share that. I mean, I had faced a lot of situations where people. So mostly about leaving a company, right? I mean, because we know it's very competitive, depending on obviously the times. But in my experience, I mean, people moved a lot because they got a higher offer from a different company and they moved. Oh, it pays more money, so obviously I would move. But then some came back, or I talked to them and they said they kind of missed the other. So eventually, I mean, money is gonna be nice, but that's not what's gonna make you motivated and happy. So whether it's leaving for a different company or considering a career path,
Mm-hmm.
that shouldn't be the first. Yeah, and as you said, like, yeah, sometimes it's hard to.
When you start, it's hard, but then every time you think about it, like, also make a conscious choice to see, okay, if I had the money, then what would I miss? Would I miss this job? So I think it should be a factor every time anybody decides to move, for sure. You're absolutely right. People move for a very small amount of percentage changes, and that's not uncommon, right? But people come back. A lot of people go back. A lot of people regret making that move. A lot of people regret making that move for, oh, I
Yeah,
missed the culture of my previous. I missed my team, and it's not the same here. Though I get more, I don't enjoy it at all. A lot of people
yeah,
say it.
yeah, and I don't want to make people think that I don't care about money or I don't think it's important. It's definitely is important, but shouldn't be like the only driver for any kind of change you want to make.
And takes time.
And
Like, as you grow in your career, you will realize that pretty quickly.
yeah, sure.
Once you, like, start ascending the Maslow's hierarchy, once you've done the security, when you get a social, and then you're like, something's missing, and you will start, like, hang in there. That's what I would say. So if you're at a place where in your career you feel like money is your important thing, don't let that hold you back. Do the move, but understand that that's not going to be forever. When you start moving and when you start growing your career, your contentment will take precedence to a
Yeah,
large extent.
yeah, for sure. And you mentioned also strategic Tell me, Harini, I mean, how do you become strategic? This is one of the things that I coach a lot of leaders on. And also for me, it was difficult at the beginning because no one told me how to be strategic.
Oh, yeah.
So share a little bit like what it is for you and how do you kind of train that strategic muscle?
Don't you think it's like one of those words that people just throw at you and you're like, what am I supposed to do? You're in the headlines.
What does
right?
it mean? What am I supposed to do?
Word.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I supposed to be using that word in conversations now? It takes a long time to understand what they actually mean when they mean strategic. And that just means, to me, a lot of it is just timeline wise. So strategic is, yes, thinking about the bigger picture than looking at the individual things, but it's also looking at, hey, for a year from now, what capabilities do you want to be able to provide, like timeline wise? So if you want to me, and I'm sure I'm going to turn this around and ask your opinion on this. To me, if you really want to dumb it down and think, if you're thinking strategically, what does this look like? To me, that's like, okay, if I don't do this, what will happen? And do I want to be doing this a year from now? Is this what my team should be doing a year from now? Is this the capability that we should be providing 18 months from now? So to me, that the long vision is strategic. And I'm sure that's not the only thing, but to me, that's the first thing that I would start with. That anytime anybody asks strategic, what do you think, Limor?
Yeah. So I think it involves time and also kind of content, meaning like the size or the impact of the work you're making. So if I take the example you mentioned earlier about the dashboard, right? Someone asked you to make a dashboard, okay? But if you ask the question, okay, why do we need this dashboard? And what is it going to help us do? And you look into a more like, I don't know how to do it without using the word strategic, but in the bigger picture or the bigger scheme of things, like why are we doing that? What purpose does it serve? Eventually, that's how you make decisions that are impacted not just by one specific ask, oh, I'm going to do this dashboard or whatever, versus those are the high level problems I want to solve, or this is where I want us to be in the next year. And then start kind of looking backwards and figuring out what do we need to do in order to get there. So it's looking a little bit more to the horizon and also at a kind of wider angle.
Yeah.
So it means like yeah, go ahead.
Seconds. You said time, size, and impact. That's it. Those three things make strategic, right? You said it. I wrote it down. I'm like, Limor, you had the words for it. But it's not like time, scale, like the size of it, and the impact that it'll bring. To me, that's pretty much strategy for anything that you want to do. And that like takes you to the, at least to start having those conversations as a strategy piece. So you got this, Limor. Your years of experience doing this shows. You had the work.
And I think looking back to what we talked about earlier, when you're a manager, you need to really lift your head from the kind of diving into like solving the technical problems of your team and diving so too deep. So you had to lift your head and look a little bit, right? The horizon and sideways, and instead of like going deep. Otherwise, you will not be able to do that.
Yep. And also something somebody said very recently really resonated with me. What would happen if you don't do it? You'll have to ask that question as well. Like we always talk about what will happen when you do it. What's the impact of doing this?
Yeah.
But you also have to take a step and like think about what happens if you don't do it. So I thought that was a really good sound piece of advice when you're looking at strategy.
Yes, and this is very useful when you have more than you can chew. So one of the biggest problems I've faced and I've seen companies faced is the prioritization.
Yes, I was going to say that word. That's another word.
And when you're being asked to do more than you can chew, then you really have to ask the right. And that's why I said, right, I mean, managers need to make tough decisions. That's part of it. Like tough decisions is to decide what not to do and not just what to do and how to do it. So if you ask the question you mentioned, right, what will happen if we don't do it? And it helps you kind of assess whether this is something you have to do right now, have to do at all,
At all, right? At all.
Yeah.
And I when I heard it the first time, I'm like, that's key. That's very crucial. Everybody thinks about what is the impact of doing this, but sometimes you also have to, or rather, every time, take a step back and do both. What happens?
Yeah.
What's the impact that I bring doing this, and what's the impact if I don't do this? And prioritization is another thing people wins, like strategy. They're like, okay, that word is not something we want to do. Okay, not
This
really.
is hard. This is hard thing. And I've seen executives struggle with that.
Yeah.
So this is hard
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay.
Wow. I can't believe we talked. Time flies.
Oh, does.
And I wanted to ask you before we end our conversation today, Harini, if there's anything else I haven't asked that you want to share.
So I have a couple of life lessons that I would tell myself.
Yeah, go for it.
And some of these are very useful. I mean, they're all useful in career wise, but some of these are super niche, and I don't know if okay, here goes. One, I'm censoring myself, and one of the things that you shouldn't do as a leader is to censor yourself when you have good ideas. Okay, here we go. Two things. One is get really, really good in Excel. In Microsoft Excel with rows and columns, it doesn't matter whoever you are, your VLOOKUPs are gonna benefit in ways that you don't think about. So get really good in Excel, and trust me, it's gonna be valuable. If you stay in data, 1,000% valuable. If you don't stay in data, it still is very, very valuable. That's one. And the other is get really good at writing emails, like condensing your thoughts into writing good, impactful emails with as small number of words. That's going to get so useful as you climb the ladder, because you have a million things that's like rattling in your head, that you have things that you know of, that you have questions for, and then you want things that you want to happen. But condensing those and like making sure that you convey what you want to convey. If it's an ask, so say what you want to say and ask the question, like to the point. Writing really good emails, like to me, that's worth its weight in gold, whatever weights are MBs. But those are my two things that I would leave anybody with. In your career, these two things will never go away and will always reap benefits as you go through it.
Wow, incredible. Thank you so much for sharing those. And Harini, where could our listeners find you?
Okay, I was gonna go hide, maybe under a rock.
You're going to hide. Okay, we're not going to let you hide.
I thought that's just
On LinkedIn, yeah.
Rajagopal, like feel free to send me LinkedIn messages. I respond to pretty much every LinkedIn message that I get. So yeah, that's easy.
Perfect.
I do have an email in there, but I'm faster with LinkedIn. So
yeah, absolutely. I'll share your LinkedIn handle, and thank you so much, Harini. It was lovely talking with you today.
Yeah, it was amazing talking to you, Limor. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to the episode with Harini. And before you go, I just want to share with you what's coming up next week on From a Woman to a Leader. And next week, I'm talking with an incredible woman. Her name is Yasim Gozen. And Yasim is Turkish originally, and she is also a former Google executive. And she made a bold move. She moved from Turkey to Dublin at the age of 38 to follow her dream. Just that fact by itself shows it's never too late to follow your dreams and make drastic changes in your life and in your career. Nowadays, she lives in London, and in this episode, we talk about a topic that you can never talk about enough, especially for women and especially for women in tech. And we talk about the real struggles of imposter syndrome. And, things like what it's like to be the only woman in a leadership meeting filled with confident men, and how Yasim turned that experience into a powerful career pivot. And before you leave, I have a favor to ask you. If you like this episode with Harini, please share it with any woman you feel that's going to be impactful, helpful for, or just, you think she's going to resonate with. Don't forget to follow this episode, leave a comment, ask a question, subscribe, and tune in for never missing any episode of From a Woman to a Leader. We release episodes weekly on Wednesdays. And I want to invite you to connect with me and follow me on LinkedIn. It's Limor Bergman Gross. I'm happy to connect with you, talk to you, hear your struggles, hear your successes, answer any questions you have, or email me to limor@limorbergman.com. My mission is to support women like you. So don't miss next week's episode. I think it's one of the most honest and heartwarming conversations I've had this season. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye.